Right, okay, guys, welcome to another Friday Waffle. And I've been joined with some company, long overdue company from Mr. Panther UK. How you doing, buddy? You all right?
Hello, mate. Yeah, I'm doing just dandy. I think since we last spoke, some nurse thought she was Eric Bristow and vaccinated me in the arm. So I've had my influx of microchips and crushed up fetuses, and now I can pick up 5G. It's all good.
And has the Wi-Fi improved as well, tenfold, is it?
Yeah,
Oh,
it is,
excellent, excellent, yeah. So have you had, is it just the one you've had?
Yeah, just the first one, mate. I'm only a wee 49-year-old.
That's true. I'll be way ahead of you in that one, I think, eh?
yes, Granddad.
All right, son. Anyway, how's the channel going? I still do. I'm terrible for not commenting. I still do watch your channel, and I will put a link to your channel just to explain to anybody that's not aware of what is it that you actually do, sort of YouTube wise.
God, blimey. Well, if you don't know already, this big logo behind me, Sid Effects, is what I record Commodore 64 music with dual SID chips, so it's in kind of stereo. And originally, that was what I was going to do on my channel, but some Scottish bloke I know moaned and said, really, you should be talking in videos. So then I did a video about how Rambo takes longer to load than it does to complete. And now I've just started doing loads of Commodore 64 and Amiga, a couple of Spectrum games here and there. You know, a bit of everything. The one I've done most of is me Commodore 64 arcade port comparisons.
Yeah. I enjoy that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going all right. I think I was at 367 subscribers this morning, but it's back down to 366 now. See, when you're on low numbers, you can notice it change. But you know me, I don't do it for the subscribers. I do it because I enjoy video editing. I mean, it started off as a project to my boy's going away to university this year, my youngest, and he's doing video editing and all stuff to do with you know, film and stuff like that. So I thought it would help him. So the original videos that I did were all edited by my boy, who goes by the handle of Metal City on YouTube. And he was doing the editing. I was basically recording the games and the voice and whatever, and any music I needed, giving him a list of stuff and saying, that's what I want, make it happen. And then when lockdown started easing off around September last year, obviously he was still doing college work. So his college work's piling up and he's trying to do all these videos for me. So I said, look, do you just do the Sid Effects ones? Because he does a little graphic equalizer. And I said, and I'll take over the other ones. And I discovered I quite like editing video as well. So I think as my work, my job starts going more and more full time as we're getting back to normal, I might not manage every Sunday like I have been over the last year, but I'm going to carry on putting them out. I enjoy doing it.
No, that's an important thing. Have you got any kind of like goal at all, or I mean, do you see where your channel is going to go, or are you still going to primarily kind of Commodore, going to concentrate on Commodore machines? Because you're a C64 fanboy. There's no question of that.
I don't know
as well. Nothing wrong with that. But do you think you will?
I don't know what gives you that idea, Al. Well, I mean, the video I'm hoping to put out Sunday week is another 5 from 5 one, which is where I do 5 different machines and a game on each. And I mean, there is a Commodore 64 and a Commodore Amiga game in there, but I think there's another Spectrum one, a Mega Drive, and a Windows PC game in there. So I do branch out a bit occasionally. But yeah, I mean, primarily because I record the music on the Commodore 64, I mean, you know, I've got 15 of the bloody things. That's primarily where my channel is. You know, it's like a Commodore 64 thing mostly. But you know, I'm quite happy to do other stuff because I mean, I'm like yourself, Al. I've got ROMs and games coming out my ear holes. But really and truthfully, unless I'm recording them now, I don't really play them that much. I mean, I'm not going to go into detail in case you get moaned at again, but I mean, I've been playing Elite Dangerous a lot with Lucosa. But other than that, I'm only really playing games when I'm doing videos. So, but
that's the thing. Yeah, I mean, whilst I do try, and I'm conscious that I do, you know, tend to, you know, I wouldn't say I focus on the C64, but the thing for me is that was the machine that I had for Christ, I must have the C64 for about, I don't know, when did I get it? 83. Got rid of it, and I only had it for 4 years. But 4 years, still quite a long time. All my history, all the early games that I ever played were on the Commodore 64. So I've got the knowledge and the back kind of catalogue and memory-wise C64. So if you talk about the BBC, everybody knows that Elite came out in the BBC. The Spectrum, you think of Manic Miner, Jetpack. People talk about old games. I can't say, it's the same as like when I do these like Arcade Perfect, my arses, or I'm going to look at unofficial clones of a certain type of game, whether it's Centipede or Scramble. I can remember, there's a game called Scramble with a K, there's whatever it is, Super Scramble. I know the games from the C64, but I don't have the knowledge to say, I remember. I don't have the knowledge of other systems. So that's why I do put out a lot more Commodore 64 and probably Amiga videos, just because I've got the knowledge of these ones. These are kind of my specialised subject.
Well,
I do try and mix,
because they're better. Let's be honest.
Well, obviously that goes without saying.
Well, look, mate. I mean, I started with a Spectrum. This is what makes me laugh when there's I mean, the people that know me on your channel, the old gamer Steve and Colin and Dell and that, they know I'm just winding people up, but a lot of the people that kind of get very aerated when, like, especially when Luke is on as well, and we've had a go at the Spectrum, don't realise that I started off with a Spectrum. It was my first ever computer was a Spectrum 48 Plus, and I only got rid of it because I thought the Commodore 64 was better for games because I like the colours and I like the sound and stuff like that. But if people are going to buy it, then I'm going to throw them a line, man, because it's. If people should understand that, that's it. I went Spectrum, Commodore 64, ST, Amiga, same thing. I got one because I thought it was good. Then I saw the other one that I thought it was better. And then I went off into, once I had the Amiga, then I went off to PlayStations, and a couple of mates had a SNES, and I used to borrow them, and the Mega Drives and that. So, I mean, and from the PlayStation onwards, I've got a PlayStation, I've got a 1, 2, 3 and a 4. I've got an Xbox 360. I've got a Wii. It's not like I've stopped. Commodore 64 and that's it. I've had a bit of everything, but for some reason, I don't know why Spectrum owners or real Spectrum hardcore fans really seem to buy it, and it's almost too easy. But I don't mean anything. I mean, I don't mean anything by it, and I don't. I mean, I've got a 128 in my fucking cupboard upstairs, so it's not like I've got a Spectrum. So yeah, I even bought all the. I bought that Spectrum by its. Just came by itself, and I bought a power pack. I bought an RGB kit so I could connect it to the various modern screens I've got. So I've got all the gubbins for it. I just need to get a better method of loading games because my Bluetooth tape ain't loud enough. But if I ever get a chance to set it up properly, I will buy one of them. Was it a DIV MMC? Is it for the Spectrum?
I've heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got an Amstrad CPC 464 as well, and and a VIC 20. I've got a load of. I've got so much crap, man.
It's funny how people have this rivalry. I mean, we're not going to go into it in this video, but yeah, there's obviously it started off in the school kids, but these school kids are now fully grown adults, and it's incredible when you see some of the sort of the vitriol and people get a bit excited when you start putting down a certain machine, or if you dare to make a comment that you think that one's better, you know what I mean? But
yeah, I mean that's the thing. I mean, I do it all for laughs, Al. You know that as well as anyone. Back in the day, I was pretty much a games player. So I didn't care as long as the game was good and played well. I didn't care what it looked like. For me, it just had to sound good and play well. And there was a lot of games on the Spectrum that did that. For me, there was more games on the 64 that did that. But both equal of their place in history. Just the Commodore 64 was better.
Anyway, we'll move swiftly on. What was I watching? I started watching the Bedrooms to Billions. Have you seen that? You
yes.
must have seen it.
Yeah,
you must have seen
it.
And I tend to. I'll watch it. I mean, I'm one of these people. I can watch a film and enjoy it, whatever it'll be, and then I can go back and watch it 6 months later. People will be saying, I don't want to watch a film that I've seen. Whereas if I watch a film I enjoy, I'll I'll quite happily watch it again because I know that I'm going to enjoy it, even though I know what's happening. I'm not, it doesn't bother me if I know what's coming. It's the same with like Bedrooms to Billions. I've watched it quite a few times, and whilst I don't think it's the best, well, it probably is the best retro gaming film because purely and simply because it's the only one that's out. I wasn't keen on it, the way it was kind of put together was there's nobody asking questions. It's just people talking, and obviously thinking memories. But I watched about half of it last week, I think it was, and I just got absolutely excited about. I kind of got back into that kind of headspace of what it was like back in, I don't know, 1981, when computers first kind of started to appear in the high street, appearing in schools and that. I mean, you're considerably younger than me. What was your? I mean, when you were at school, what computers was it they had?
They had BBCs when I was at school.
Oh, so they were still using the BBC micros at that point.
Yeah, well, I mean, I started what we would call senior school. I went to a comprehensive school. 83 was the year. I was 83 to 88 was my 5 years I served there.
So you were, I mean, I left school in 1985, so technically we would have almost overlapped for a couple of years.
Yeah. I still feel considerably younger than you, by the way. Natural beard colour. Yeah, we had the BBC. I mean, I know me and we were doing a lesson where we were supposed to be learning about WordStar, the word processor, and was it Lotus 1, 2, 3 or something?
Lotus 1, 2. That was the first sort of spreadsheet thing that I loved that.
Yeah. Me and a mate of mine, he brought in a disc of Elite, and we were playing that, and we got an absolute bollocking from the teacher. But yeah, we had BBCs. When I went to college, it was all like computer-aided design stuff, so they were like proprietary machines. But one of the guys there, one of the lecturers, he had an Atari ST that he brought in, and he used to show off like the MIDI sound and then let's play games on it and stuff like that. So
yeah. So do you? I mean, again, obviously you are younger than me. I mean, I was what age would I be? I mean, I'm still trying to remember my very, very first exposure to home computer. I mean, video games wise, I remember seeing a Pong game. I don't think it was the original Pong. Well, no, I'm getting muddled up with Space War. Space War is the one that's got this kind of sexy kind of look to it. No, I saw a Pong machine in Edinburgh Airport, and I was like, all right, okay. And then when Space Invaders came out, when did that come out? Was it
79? 78. Yes, was it 78, 79? Around that sort of time.
And then Atari 2600 must have kind of appeared just shortly after. And then I'm trying to think, when did like the VIC 20 and all that?
I think the VIC 20 was about, was it 1980, 80, 81? Something. I know the Spectrum and the Commodore 64 come out in 1982. I think the Spectrum come out in April, and the 64 come out in August. So they're only a few months apart. So
the VIC 20 came out kind of shortly after like Space Invaders got released.
I think so.
You reckon?
Yeah.
Aye. But yeah, excuse me. I mean, computers, I'm trying to think. My first exposure to the computer was, it was when there used to be this little sort of shopping mall in Livingston, and there was a taxi thing upstairs, and then this guy opened a computer shop, and at that point I really didn't fucking know what a computer. I knew kind of what a computer was. I'd never seen one, and then we basically just used to go in every Saturday, and he had all these Ataris, Atari 800s, Atari 400s, all these set up, and then he started. You'd go in there, and I would see like Bruce Lee running and all that, and just that whole kind of time when it was all new. It was all brand new. I mean, there was a guy on Bedrooms to Billions. He's saying, what was the holy fuck moment was previous to computers. A TV. You just looked at it, and suddenly you could interact with this TV, and that in itself was a massive thing. But just the whole excitement of like in the Bedrooms to Billions going to like, did you ever go to any like computer fairs or?
I
Did they
did
have anything
go.
like that at all?
I did go to a computer fair. I think I went to one in Olympia, but that would have been might have been eight. It must have been eight. It was either 86, 87 or 88 because I know I went with a friend I had at the time, and I know he bought Outrun for the Spectrum. So whatever year Outrun come out on the 8 bits, that was the year we went. And you know, we was walking through, and even though it was blue and white, some guy had a camera set up. I'm sure it was. I can't remember if it was a Spectrum or an Amstrad, but it was set up, and me and my mate Jay were walking past it, and it's like there's us on the screen. We walked back, and it was really heavily digitized. But at the time, it's like, look at that. there's a camera on that computer. So that must have been about, got to be 87 or early 88. That I did that, but I know, but we all had STs by 88, so it must have been earlier because I don't think he would have bought Outrun for the Spectrum when he had an ST. I mean, well, says that. I mean, I still had a Commodore 64 until about 1990, until I gave it away to someone. My original one. Wish I hadn't done that. That had a really good SID chip in it.
Just when we're talking, I'm going to share a video just as we're talking about this. There we go. Let's see. Share screen. There we go. Oh, put us back on again. There we go. And I'll make that full screen. Yeah, that was Jeff Minter that actually recorded this. But yeah, you know what's interesting? There's actually a guy, right, when I joined Yak Yak, which was Jeff Minter's forum back in 1999. There was a guy, Ian Boffin, who he joined it as well. And Ian Boffin and Jeff Minter are actually good mates. Now, Ian Boffin actually appears in this, but I don't think they knew each other. That's Ian Boffin there. See the guy, him there with the glasses?
All right.
He designed the graphics for Frack on the Commodore, on the BBC.
Nice.
So there you go. He's actually a fucking ninja at computer games. Absolutely awesome. But yeah, just you look at that. I mean, it's like spot the bird. I mean, it's literally just guys, and that whole time it was such a. I don't feel awkward being on camera at all. I can get it off me. Was that a bird or not? I think it might have been. I don't know.
Steady on, steady.
I think it was. Anyway, yeah, just, you know what, it was a brilliant time, an absolutely fantastic time. I mean, I went down to a couple of the shows. I'll take that off now, actually. I went to a couple of shows. I went to, I'll just stop this, actually. What did I go to? Did I go to Indian Olympia? No, I think the two that I went to were both at Earl's Court. Was it the Barbican? I think you got I think you get the tube to the Barbican, I'm sure.
Yeah, it could have been Earl's Court I went to, mate. It was so long ago. I mean, I've had a lot of beer since then. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, you're talking about holy fuck moments. I know my holy fuck moment was. I'm going to assume it was somewhere like Clacton in Essex, and I remember playing, seeing Space Invaders. I didn't play it. I remember seeing Space Invaders, and I was completely mesmerised by it, and Asteroids as well. And then a couple of years later, which would have been about 1981, we went on holiday, a family holiday, to the Isle of Wight, and there was a place there, a Pontin's place called Little Canada, and there was all like fake log cabins and that, and they had an arcade on site. And I was old enough, you know, I was 9 then, and back in 1981, 9 was old enough to be able to go off on your own, and they had outside where they had a little arcade with like the air hockey and loads of games and that on there. But outside the hall where like the parents and all the entertainment was done in the evening with a bar and that, they had Boot Hill on one side and Space Invaders on the other side. And I think I'd done nearly all the money I'd saved up for my holiday on the Space Invaders machine. And it was like, and it was only, you know, it was the original black and white one. So there was no colour. It was just a black screen with just, you know, the white sprites at the front of it. Yeah. And I was absolutely mesmerised. But it wasn't for another couple of years till I got a computer.
Mm. But just the whole, I feel very, very lucky that I lived through that
Oh yeah, definitely.
You know, I'd love to be 20 years old now and still have my life ahead of me, but I wouldn't miss that chunk of my life. I thought that was a absolutely brilliant time. It was a brilliant time to be alive. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's loads of people. The majority, like people that I kind of know in real life, i.e., and not on YouTube, they're not into computer games or anything like that. So it was only certain people that kind of got bit with the bug. Obviously, you being one of them, and it's never left me. And even just going into a shop, you had your tenner in your back pocket. Like, I need to buy a game. What am I going to buy? Well, fucking Julian Rignall says it's sanctions. Fucking brilliant. Or then you saw another game. You're like, I mean, when I first started going to, it was Ray's Computer Shop, the one I mentioned earlier. Zap wasn't even out. I mean, I used to buy computer and video games, but generally it would just be, what games have just come in? Oh, I've got this, we've got that. And the next time you would just literally look at the back of the box and think, well, that's got better looking graphics. Or half the time it wasn't even, you just read the description, thought that sounds better. And sometimes it was shit and sometimes it wasn't.
How many games did you buy for either the Commodore 64 ST? I mean, even, on the Spectrum, no matter what machine you bought it from, you'd always look at it and think, this looks the absolute fucking nuts. I've got to have it. And then you get home, and it was only when you got home and you was reading through the instruction, looking at it properly, it says screenshots from arcade version. You're like, bollocks.
The thing is, you can get the most pixelated graphics, expanded sprites, and you shrink that down to a screenshot the size of a postage stamp. It's going to look good.
Yeah, see, I mean, graphics were never that important for me. It was more about the gameplay, and that's why I kind of went towards the Commodore 64 because I do like a shoot 'em up, and I wouldn't say I was particularly good at any. But I like having a go, especially vertical ones, which, like yourself, why I've got a vertical monitor in the arcade machine. And it was just so smooth. I'm gonna lose. I've lost track of where I was going with that now. But yeah, it was that was it. It was the gameplay for me. And then once I did have a Commodore 64. It was about sound. I know you said you're not over keen on sound in games. I can't get enough of it. If especially on the 64, if there was an option for sound or music, I'd choose music every time. I always did.
I mean, as I said, when I think about it, I first got my C64 in 1983, and I got rid of it in 87. So, I mean, when did like, I think was it Thing in a Spring? That was the first. Bloody hell, wow. I mean, Rob Hubbard, what's his name? Paul Norman had been putting out stuff like Forbidden Forest, which was really impressive, even like Aztec Challenge and that kind of stuff. But I think Rob Hubbard just elevated it, didn't he, when Thing in the Spring? I'm not a fan of the game. I'm not even a massive fan of the music in Thing in the Spring, but from a technical viewpoint, it is, I remember Zap went daft over it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that was definitely one of the early sort of masterpieces. You had around 1985. That's when your ocean loaders were starting to have all the music, and you think of some of the games from 1985. You had Commando. If it weren't 85, it was 86 that you had. Like, Sanction was definitely 86 because I actually bought that original. You had all these amazing piece of music, and half the time I didn't care about the game. I mean, I think Sanction gets a rough deal. I actually do think Sanction's a good game. It's just hard as nails. It was made to last, but for me it was made to last so long I gave up playing it and just used to load the music up instead.
Just for the tune.
Yeah, just once the music started and the loading screen came up, just press stop on the tape, and that's that for 6 minutes or whatever. But it's.
No, I was just going to, despite the fact that we've recorded about 12 hours of Sid music, what is your? I don't want to put you on the spot. Oh, in fact, fuck it, I will. What is your favourite Sid tune?
The Wastelands level of The Last Ninja by Ben Daglish.
You can guess what my one is. I think I've mentioned it quite a few times.
It changes, doesn't it, between Commando and All Vidas Monty?
No, Monty on the Run.
That's it, Monty on the Run. I knew it was
yeah,
Monty on the Run, yeah.
Without a spoiler, I made a video last week. Well, look, I don't mean telling you. I did. Sir Lancelot suggested, why don't I do a top 10 WoW moments with games? So I've come up with 10 WoW moments. Some of them are some in modern systems, some old systems, and Monty on the Run. Listening to that for the first time, and even now, I mean, there's some astonishing music out there, but Monty on the Run is just that. It's 11 out of 10 for me. It's just,
it is. I mean, all right, it's not. It's definitely up there for me as well. But when I got the C64 Mini and I connected it all up to my telly and was plugging the controller in and seeing that the joystick weren't the best of joysticks and that, but it was all right. The first thing I did was load up Monty on the Run to see how the music turned out, and I thought if they've got the music and the emulation of the SID chip right, and it's not perfect, but Monty on the Run, because it's such an old tune, it's a lot easier for them to get that one right for emulation, so it sounded the nuts, and I thought, yep, that'll do. But Monty on the Run was the first game I loaded on my Mini, so that says it all, mate.
I think for me, I mean, it says we've listened to a lot of SID music, through the SID show, and there's been some awesome pieces of music. There's no question off. I don't think there's been any weak tunes, but as much as I like every other tune, there's always wee bits of it that kind of go into a bit of a lull, and I get a wee bit bored, and then it kind of kicks in again. But for me, Monty on the Run, it doesn't have any weak bits. It's like the Bohemian Rhapsody of SID music. It just kind of goes from one. Just when you think it's about to finish, it kicks in again, and it's wow.
See now, I'm actually quite shocked that you said Monty on the Run, because I thought your favourite SID tune would have been Oxygen 6 by Richard Bayliss.
I'm not familiar with that one. I don't think I've actually heard that.
See now, listeners, if you haven't seen the SID shows, you are not going to get that joke.
Yeah, well, you know what? I'll try and remember. I'll link up there, or whatever it is. I'll put a little link to. I don't know what show that was, but I will put a link if I remember. But you know what? I probably won't remember, because I always do that. I'll be talking about something. I'll say I'll put a screenshot now, but then by the time I come to edit it, unless you watch it all the way through, I forget.
Well, I've just looked up for fuck all. Then if you don't do that, so well done.
Anyway, I want to. You asked a particularly good question last week about what was it? What do you think was the biggest influence in the 8-bit industry? Was that what you said? What was it?
It was. I kind of think you didn't get what I meant actually in that question. What was one of the most impressive 8-bit developments? Now, although your answer was good about trebling the memory spectrum and what have you, I was thinking more along the lines of disk drives and fast carts and things like the Action Replay and stuff like that. But I didn't really ask it properly. But
aye, because I don't think you didn't mention. Well, I'm just going to actually see exactly what you said. I don't think you mentioned the word impressive. I think. What was it? Important, possibly. Let me have a wee look.
It could have been, mate. I've slept several times since then.
Aye, I'm not going to find it there. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Anyway, yeah. Well, I'm going to ask you. What do you think? Right, yeah. I don't want an answer to your question. I want an answer to my version of your question.
Go on, then.
What do you think was the most influential thing to happen in the 8-bit industry? Obviously, I was talking about the Spectrum. Had it not been for the Spectrum, I don't think we would. It certainly wouldn't have been the same market that we had in the UK. What do you think was the biggest, most influential thing to happen 8-bit wise?
Well, for me personally, was when disk drives arrived and everything started loading a bit quicker. But if you're talking about influential, I would go back. I would say more influential in the Spectrum was probably the ZX81, because without the ZX81, there wouldn't have been a Spectrum. I mean, the ZX80 was all right, but the 81 come along and people were able to program games. I mean, you look at 3D Monster Maze on that. I mean, that for what it is, that is a really impressive. It's the first person game.
Yeah,
So yeah, in terms of actual hardware like that, influential, I would say the ZX81. Because all right, I mean, obviously, there is a lot of rival between the Spectrum and the Commodore fan base. But obviously, these things weren't copies of each other because they only come out months apart. And obviously, the Commodore come out originally in America, and it was really big in Germany. It's really weird the way that things go. They were kind of on equal footing over here, but America, they hardly knew about the Spectrum. And then you had France that was really Amstrad. You had Spain that was really big on the Spectrum. And you had Germany. Germany and Holland were really massive on the Commodore 64. It's weird the way different things go. But I think we was lucky in Britain that we had a slice of everything. Well, Commodore had a plant over here at Corby, so they were actually making the units in the UK, like the PAL ones. You had Sinclair having their stuff made, and you had Amstrad having their stuff made. I think Alan Sugar had a lot of his stuff made in the Far East, like in Taiwan or wherever, and then shipped over because he was all about cost reduction, weren't he? But because it was kind of like a centre, we had everything. You could go into a shop, you could buy a Dragon, an Auric, a BBC, a Spectrum, a Commodore, a Vic.
Awesome.
You must remember going into things like John Menzies or WH Smith's, and there just being a line of computers with screens, and every single one saying bollocks on it because someone's done a go to 10 command and filled the screen up.
What I thought was quite interesting was I think I mentioned it in last week's Waffle in that Bedrooms to Billions. One of the guys said that he was talking about how most computers had limits, like the C64 had was 8 sprites and 3 channels and whereas the Spectrum was just a keyboard, a screen, and RAM, and it didn't have anything special. So it was just like it was like a blank piece of paper, and so he says that's what really. It really pushed people to come up with these really wild and wacky kind of creative ideas, and that's why. I mean, let's be honest. When you, and again, I'm going to upset Spectrum owners. If you lay the sort of hardware side by side, Commodore 64, Spectrum, keyboard, who's going to win that? C64, sound, yep, whatever, scrolling, yep. Technically, the Spectrum should be trounced by the C64, but you look at, in fact, we shouldn't even be talking about comparing it with C64. You look at what they actually achieved on the Spectrum. Some of the games that they put out in the Spectrum, especially some of the later stuff, the stuff that they're putting out in the last couple of years, just absolutely incredible because they seem to have completely overcome the colour clash. That's no longer exists. They've come up with ways of, I can't remember what it's called. It's got a name. They've come up with ways of displaying more colours on the screen. It's astonishing. It's absolutely astonishing when you look at this little rubber keyboard with, little plastic thing. It's not even the bloody size of a computer. I mean, it's about that size. It's tiny. It's like an A5 book.
That's right. Yeah, I destroyed a couple of them playing Decathlon. We going back to when I got mine. I got mine a year later than a lot of the people around me, like neighbours and like friends I had when I was a kid. Because although I liked playing arcade games when I was on holiday, I never really had a great interest. I hadn't really followed the computer thing in the home. I was quite happy at the age of 9 or 10. I was quite happy with my Action Man and my Space Lego. And the kid next door, his parents bought him a Spectrum 48 one Christmas, and he said, on Boxing Day, he said, come in and have a look. He goes, it's fun. And he had Decathlon, he had the game Frankenstein, which I put in one of my videos recently. And yeah, we absolutely caned his thing playing because he didn't have a joystick. So he didn't have a joystick interface. So it was like, I think it was N and M on the keyboard, and you're like bang, 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 bang. And the round them keys was worn, and it had it was like concave where we'd done it. His mum had to send it away and get it repaired and have a new metal plate put on it because we played Decathlon that much. But yeah, I mean, those are the moments you're talking about, and and then my next big wow moment was when my mate Dean said, "No, come and have a look at my computer and then played me crazy comments, and you know, I've
Aye.
only just picked my jaw up from that, and it was like it was like 35
Aye.
years ago.
Aye. Aye. No, impressive sound that, absolutely. I tend to think though that instead of, you know, I don't think the industry would be what it was, and I don't think it would have led to where it's gone had it not been for all these machines. If it'd only been the Spectrum in the UK, I think it would have been a shadow of itself. And likewise, the C64. I think you needed all these different machines.
Oh
I think that
definitely.
you know, at the end of the day, we were us C64 guys were paying like £1 more for per game, and Gary Bracey told me that. And when I asked him why, he says because we could.
Yeah,
there was no reason for doing it other than fuck it, let's charge these bastards an extra £1.
Yeah, their computer's nearly twice the price, so we'll charge them an extra quid. Yeah, I know.
And my sort of stupidity, I kind of thought, well, it must be because they've only got 48K of code to write for the C60 for the Spectrum, and they've got more to write for, so it has to be more expensive. But obviously, that wasn't the case. They did it because they can. But no, I think you know, it's like football. I'm not into football at all, but you know, you take if you're Manchester United and you take Man City away. If you've only got Man United, who gives a shit? You need that. That was a healthy competition. You know.
It was, but I mean, so there are people that have taken it too far, and I mean, you know, I can only say so many times. I am literally only winding them up. I've got plenty of nostalgia for the Spectrum, which is why I bought another one when I got the chance. But you know, instead of having to mess about with ear and mic leads, I bought one from a mate, so I knew it worked, and it's got a built-in tape deck. You know, it's the +2 grey model, and you know, I spent as much time taking that to bits and cleaning it all and making sure the keyboard membrane worked. I repainted the logos because they've been worn and that. You know, making that thing brand new as much as I would any Commodore 64. It's a piece of computer history, and I'm glad to have it. You know, I do prefer the Commodore 64 because that's why I changed. But then I had an ST, and I had an ST for a while, and then I started playing some stuff on a mate's Amiga, and I preferred the Amiga, so I just switched to that. Doesn't mean the ST was shit. It just means I had a different preference, and that's my subjective right to be able to choose what I want to choose. But unfortunately, when I was at school and I sold my Spectrum and bought a Commodore 64, my mate Jay didn't talk to me for about 2 months. He was
Exactly.
he was a hardcore Spectrum fanboy. He was absolutely disgusted that I'd changed sides. And I remember me and my other mate, there was like a group of us that used to all knock about. We were trying to wind him up, and we wrote in tiny little, on a wall in graffiti, tiny little letters that said something like Spectrums are rubbish, JV will tell you, and it was in tiny writing. You had to know it was there to see it, and we were like schoolboys laughing like that. We went down there a couple of days later, and Jaddy's mate had got a fucking spray can, and in foot-high letters all along someone's wall they'd sprayed Commodore wankers. Of course, me and Dean are in bits. It's like, well, we couldn't believe they'd seen it. But secondly, it's like they'd gone to all that length to go and buy spray paint to do this massive bit of graffiti, all because of a little postage size thing we'd done. But yeah, I mean, you get the same with the 64. You get your hardcore ones. I mean, I didn't say I do it for a laugh, but you do get people that are like that. I mean, I've seen. I've got a friend. I'm not going to name him. I've got a friend on Facebook who's heavily into the ST. And if you even mention Amiga near him, he does his bollocks at you. And you know, some people are just like that. Me, I've got one of everything. I haven't got an ST anymore, but you know, of most of the machines I've had, I've still got one.
But I do think that if it wasn't for if you took the C64 out of the equation, I don't think the Spectrum would have been as good as it was, because at the end of the day, you need it's a healthy competition. And even like moving on to kind of current times, I mean, I'm looking up there, I've got my Zap and my Crash annuals. If it hadn't been for Crash, then Zap would never have existed. If it hadn't been for Chris Wilkins making these Crash annuals, Zap 64 annuals wouldn't exist. Yeah, so how did you get involved in the Zap 64 annuals? How did that come about?
When the second one was in production, I got a message from Chris Wilkins, and he just said to me, would you be interested? Because I was sharing like my Sid Effects albums on all the Commodore groups. and he sent me a message and a friend request. And he said, would you be interested in writing about your music for the Zap annual? And I said, I would, but you have to understand it's not my music. I said, I'm not making music. I'm just recording music. And he went, yeah. He goes, that's fine. And he asked me what I did. And he said, would you be interested in like doing a piece about your recordings and the bit of hardware, the SID FX? So yeah, I ended up with like 3.5 pages in Zap, like giving me a little bit of my back history of listening to SID music when I was a kid and that, and then moving on, having it on discs for the Amiga emulated, and then having it on the whole thing in my pocket on my phone. And I think the whole high voltage SID collection is only about 55 meg or something like that. And
50,000 songs.
Yeah, and he basically said, would you do it? I said, well, look, I said, I've started writing it. I said, how long do you want it? I said, because I'm getting a bit carried away here. Because I thought, he's just going to want a page or a column or something. And he said, well, send me what you've got and when we'll see how it goes. And I sent him like my first, it must have been 1,000 words or something. And I said, yeah, that's what I've done so far. What do you think? And I just got back, keep writing. And I thought, well, fair enough. So I wrote that and they published that. And in the latest one, I said to him, I said, look, they used to do a SID chart in Zap. If I get some data from Facebook groups and that, ask people their favourite songs and collate a list, would you be interested in having a Zap chart again for the first time for ages? And he went, yeah, write it. So I did, and he published it. I mean, when I did the first one about the SID FX, because it was a bit more techie, I actually got become friends with Roger Keane, and he basically sent me an initial draft that they'd put together in Publisher or whatever they use to see if I liked what they'd done. And he said because he's techie, he wanted to make sure he got it right. So I've also become friends with Roger as well through doing stuff with Zap. Mm-hmm. And then I'm in the Patreon for the monthly magazine. I've got all 3 Zap annuals. Yeah, it was just as simple as that. Just a simple message from Chris asking if I fancied writing about music. And yeah, I mean, given the chance, I'd do something every 3 months for them if they want.
No, it is nice to be kind of part of. I mean, at the end of the day, I think these annuals are going to. It's like all these things. They are going to become collectible because I don't think you can.
Yeah, they are. I do a daily search. I've got it set up on my phone on eBay for Commodore 64 because sometimes something will come up and you can grab it, like I've done with a couple of machines or a game or a cartridge or something like that. Mm. I saw a Zap album, Zap Annual 2019 on there. I think it was either yesterday or the day before. It was for bidding. And the first starting bid was £100.
Holy shit!
Yeah, holy shit! I mean, that cost me one of my first one. I think was £15 plus postage, which all right. Annuals only used to be like £3 or £4 back in the day, but with inflation, not worried about that. I mean, there's a lot of work gone into it. But yeah, £100 for the Zap 64, the first one. So yeah, they looks like they are going to become collector's items.
So yeah, and it's nice. I mean, obviously, I fell into it through accident. It was more accidental than anything, but I think it was you and I that came up with the idea with Paul and Moz. Why don't we do a Zap challenge? And then
no, that was you. That was you and Paul, mate. That had nothing to do with me. It was like we both did it on the live stream, but yeah, no, that was. I'm not going to take any credit for that.
And we could pick another 100 games, and Paul would fucking absolutely kick my arse from here to eternity. But in that one particular game, I pulled through.
He'd kick your ass at Rainbow Islands because he's a big girl. He'll laugh about that.
I showed my daughter Ava the annual, and she was just more impressed that my 2 dogs got to appear in it.
Yeah, who are you again?
I'll tell you, they look over the mountain beans up anyway. Anyway, listen, right, we better crack on with some questions. So what I'm going to do is I've got a few from last week. First one, I'll let you go first with this one. Mr. Colin Jones, completely not a gaming related one. What is your favourite form of transport to travel in as a passenger?
Probably my Anaconda in Elite Dangerous.
Good question.
Um,
Good answer, I should say. Even.
If the roads around here weren't so thin, so I have to keep bumping up on the pavement and annoying people, I've got a fairly decent mountain bike. Needs a bit of attention, but you know, it's got like hydraulic brakes and all the bells and whistles on it. Well, actually, it hasn't got a bell or a whistle on it, but you know what I mean. But I'm quite happy to be a passenger in a car. I haven't got a driving license. I failed my test when I was 17, and then I started drinking, and you can't drink and drive. And I carried on going to the pub. Literally, a few years later, I met my missus who has a driving license. So there was never any arguments over who was drinking and who was driving. But yeah, I'm quite happy.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I quite like walking. I quite like walking. Until my missus started working at the same place as me, I did start using my bike to go to work, but I was trying to get a bit of exercise, and it's all downhill on the way home, so I was getting none of literally freewheel all the way home. So I started walking instead, and I find I quite like walking. I normally put some music on. It's normally either melting my brain with heavy metal or Sid music, and I just amble along the road. I'm quite a fairly brisk walker, so get a sweat on, get a bit of exercise.
See, that's the thought. Although I'm a short arse, I walk exceptionally fast. Well, I've always walked fast. Probably before I turned fat. When I used to do ultra running, there would be times where you're like, you're maybe getting to the last 10 miles of a race, and you would just fucking walk. So you want to obviously walk fast, but yeah, I do walk fast, and I hate it when I enjoy walking as well. If I'm out somewhere and I'm walking along maybe quite a kind of lonely road, and then I can see like a girl up in front of me, and I've then got to you get that awkward thing. If I keep walking at the same pace, I'm going to eventually kind of catch up, and so you end up slowing down, and you feel like you're kind of you look more dodgy doing that.
I know exactly what you mean, because unless you actually shout out and tell them, which is even going to be more scarier for them.
Aye.
I'd always think if I'm walking behind I don't know, a schoolgirl or a woman or someone, and then they're uneasy about me being there, there's no way I can tell them. It's like, you're actually perfectly safe, because if anyone attacks you, I'm gonna fucking kill them. You know what I mean? I would if I was walking down the road and someone jumped out and a woman tried to grab her bag or tried to sexually assault her or something, I'd be in there like a shot, and I would kick 7 bells out of them without even a thought of my own personal safety. But you can't emote that, so you have to try and hang back. I know exactly what you mean,
and
mate.
you feel because you're kind of hanging back, you don't want them to turn around and see you kind of like sort of just slowing up or loitering or standing still for a bit. So yeah, that's the unfortunate thing about walking fast. My favourite form of transport as a passenger, let me think, aeroplanes. I don't mind. I quite enjoy the thrill of going on an aeroplane, the taking off and looking out the window, but the whole fucking queuing for 2 hours
Never been on one.
Get onto the thing. You never been on a plane?
Nope. I've
never been on a plane.
Never had to fly anywhere.
Aye, planes are good. I mean, they're fun. You're taking off as you're looking out the window, and then as you're coming down, you've got the thing. Will we crash or will we not crash? Whatever. But no, I mean, I do quite enjoy going on a plane, but I can't be bothered with the fanning about. You've got to queue for 2 hours before you get on the plane, and then when you come to actually get off, you've got to wait for about half an hour for everybody to fuck about and get their stuff off. So yeah, that's all right. Cars, I don't mind. I mean, a car's more, for me, it's more an intimate place. You can have a blather. I'm not a massive fan of being a passenger in a car. In fact, I'm very rarely a passenger in a car. It's usually me driving. I think probably my favourite, I've not been on a bus for a long, long time. I used to enjoy going back to when we were talking about going down to London to the computer shows. I used to quite enjoy going down the bus, and we used to back in the olden days. There was a thing called the youth club, basically a club of youths, and it was like during the summer. I mean, it was just you paid like £5 and you got the bus down to Blackpool. You got the bus down to Blackpool, and I can still remember getting down. Me and my mate Grant used to get the bus down to Blackpool. It was just fully random people, and they would stop at the services, and you'd get out and you'd get whatever it was. You didn't get a McDonald's because they didn't exist. You would get something to eat a sandwich, and you'd have a couple of games of Commando in the service bit, and then you get down to Blackpool, and we'd go to the arcades, and then we would, for some strange reason, we thought because Blackpool is like the mecca of arcades, we thought that you would get cheap software for your computer, and that was never the case. I remember buying do you remember Bo Jolly software? They were like shit. They were basically budget. Yeah. I got the Bo Jolly collection, and it was Imagine games, and it was all the original, like fucking Pedro.
Arcadia and stuff like that.
I don't think even Arcadia was on it. It was absolutely fucking awful. But I remember, I think you had to get back to the bus for like say 6 o'clock, and I remember we were still in the arcades, and we're like, "Fuck, the bus is." And basically, the guy said, "If you're not, we'll wait 5 minutes. If you're not there, we're fucking leaving you." And that was it. And we were still like, "Shit, we've got to get back to the bus." So me and my mate are fucking run like fuck, and I'm like, I've got to go for a shit. So I'm running about looking for a toilet, and then eventually got one. It was about 6:15, and folk are like, "Hey!" So I did make it. But yeah, buses I think can be quite good fun. But I think my favourite form of transport it's nice as being on a train. It's quite comfortable. You can walk about. You can do what you want. You can charge your phone. Well, not that I go with my phone in it, but yeah, probably trains. I think that's probably my favourite form. But
I'll tell you what, I did enjoy. It must have been 1996, I think, because my other half was carrying our first then. I went to a theme park in Holland called Efteling. Apparently, it's where Walt Disney got his ideas from. So it's really it's been there a long time. And we did the overnight from Felixstowe to wherever it goes in Holland. I don't know, the Herk van Holland, the corner of Holland, whatever it's called. And we did an overnight, and we got on the boat. You do the normal customs and stuff like that. We got on the boat, and there was like a casino, and there was like a singer and that. And we're sitting there, and we were eating we're eating foreign food. We're eating schnitzels and roll mops, the pickled herrings and stuff like that. And it was just one of them nights. It was a really, really calm sea. It was a really sunny day. And there was me, my dad, and my brother, all our respective wives and that have all gone to bed and that. And we're watching the sun go down behind the boat. Just on it was like it was burying itself into England. And we were just stood on this boat having a beer. And that was that for about half hour. We just stood there watching the sun disappear into England. And it was one of the best things I've ever done on the back of the boat, right at the aft of the boat.
I've completely forgot about boats. I mean, I've not been on many, but I did do a couple of. You used to be able to do this little 3-day tour to Belgium, Bruges, and you got the ferry from like Fife, a part of Scotland. I did that fucking 10, 15 years ago. I did it with my dad, and then we did it at a stag night as well. And yeah, bro, I'd kind of forgotten about that. It's nice. There's something really chilled about being on a boat as well. When you see just watching the kind of the sunset.
Yeah, it was nice because I can see the sunset to the west whenever I want now because I live on the west coast of England. But back then, me watching the sun go down was watching it disappear behind someone's house. Living in North London, but to be able to be at sea at the back of a boat heading away from England and watch the sun come down effectively into the country on the horizon was really good. So yeah, if my favourite ever journey was probably that half hour, 45 minutes. Yeah. My dad and my brother all had a beer, just watching the sun go down, just talking bollocks like you do. So
nice. Nice. LRM is asking, have you seen the new ZX Spectrum port of Space Invaders that came out a few weeks back? Have you seen that at all?
No, the last one I saw on the Spectrum, I think was one you put on your.
That was a couple of years. One. That was actually like an emulation. Tell you what, could that be a pest? Could you do a quick search for it on YouTube when we go? I'll read it the next question. So it's
your one or that one?
No, the new one apparently came out a few weeks ago. See if you can find anything. Del Boy's asking, if you could have a superpower, what would it be? I think that would probably change per day. I don't know, superpower. In other words, you can do anything. I mean, the obvious one is being invisible. What else have you got? Super strong, run really fast. Being able to, I don't know, being able to play video games, get to level 2, that would do me. I don't know. What do you think? Superpowers? Being able to maybe turn time back by up to an hour. Would that really save? Would that stop anything happening? I don't know. Being able to read people's minds. What are you thinking? Superpower.
Being able to do any kind of magic would probably be useful.
I'm trying to think. I mean, I don't know. You could be all philosophical and say, yeah, being able to turn back time, so I could go back to whenever it was 1953 and stop the Americans dropping the nuclear bomb. And now I know probably I got the year wrong, but I could stop the Americans, or I could shoot Hitler before he opened the concentration camps. I don't know.
Yeah, but see, the thing is, though, what would you change if you'd done that? Because a lot of our technology and that we have is all due to war. All our computers and stuff like that.
You're right. I know Wi-Fi, and even the thing is, if you could only change what's happened, if everything was going rosy, you'd be sitting going that. Come on, somebody fuck up. Come on, hurry up. Somebody murder somebody. You wouldn't really be able to do. I don't know. I think, you know what? I'd love to be able to fly. I would love to be being able to fly like Superman. Just that would be. I think that'd be pretty damn good.
Right, with regards to Space Invaders.
All right, have you found anything?
Instead of putting a YouTube video on, why don't I download it? Because there's a link on the YouTube video I've found, and I'll play it in Spectaculator. Because yes, I do have a Spectrum emulator.
Excellent. Anyway, yeah, I think probably flying. What kind of purpose could I serve? I suppose flying is just, or would you get bored? Would I get bored of flying? You can only fly so many places. I mean, let's be honest, I'm a lad. If I was going to be invisible, it's so I could go into women's changing rooms in a sports centre. I mean, that's the bottom line. I mean, I don't know. What do you think? I'm trying to think.
So these women you've been walking behind now, are they really that safe?
I can't think any other reason to be. I don't know. No, I don't know. What are you thinking yourself? What would you if you had a superpower? What would it be?
Well, I mean, having Superman's things would be handy, wouldn't they? Really?
But you can't have all of them. You can only pick one. I mean, what's been super strong? And you can only impress chicks so many times lifting cars. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I suppose so.
No, I think, I don't know. I suppose from an ethical point of view, being able to reverse time would, up to a certain length, you could potentially stop things happening. I don't know. I'm going to go for flight. Yeah, being able to fly. And what are you going for?
I don't know, mate.
Sorry, I know I can see you're fucking about with that spectator. You can't multitask like me. that's why I die so many times. I'm looking at comments.
Yeah, flying would be good. I think I'd like something like the Flash. You have super speed.
Again,
being able to get somewhere really quick. Well, because you run that fast, you won't sink on the water. It's like, I fancy a quick trip to New York. 4 seconds later, you're there.
Bollocks, we're out of milk. Back in half a second. Boom, there we go. The problem is, that's technically not true. Because you would go, boom, and you'd be in the shop, and you would have the milk at the counter, and then there'd be somebody paying with cash, and you'd have to wait and unpacking their bags. So technically, you would still be hindered with other people who aren't, the ability. What about the ability to read somebody's mind or to get inside their mind, so you can so before, when you're driving along and or in your case on your bike, whatever, and somebody pulls it in front of you, before you start firing a rakey fucks into them, just think for a second, wait a minute, That guy's just lost his wife or something. I don't know. That you wouldn't really be able to use that. No, I'll stick with flight, and you're going for flight as well. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, go for that. Have you managed to get that work? Oh, I can see you.
I have, yeah. I ain't got
Right,
a fucking
okay.
clue what
And
the
we're going to
keys
share
are.
this. So this is this a new one? Yeah.
Yep, 2021. And it looks just like the arcade version.
Now I'm trying to see what would differ between that one and the one that I played.
Well, this one had an interesting loading screen on it that we didn't see, which is basically the side of the cabinet. Hang on a minute. I can reload. Well, I could reload it and do it on slow load, but we want to see the game, don't we? So
yeah, because what I'm going to do when you're looking at that, I want to bring up the one that I found, and that was. Can you do the sound as well?
well, I am just trying to work out what the keys are, mate.
I'm just trying to see. I don't know if that's the. I'm guessing that's the same one as that. So,
well, this is the 2021 version, so this only come out. Oh, there we go. Configure options. Player 1 input keyboard. Be handy if I knew which buttons to press, mate. God, this is like one of your live streams. I ain't got a fucking clue what I'm doing.
welcome to my pain.
Right, that's clear. Right. Player 1 input keyboard.
Right. Okay. Well, what we'll do is, tell you what. While you're messing about with that, I'm going to share my screen. So there's my screen. This was from 2018. You can see it's slightly different layout. I don't know if you can see that at the moment.
Yep, I can see it, mate.
It's got, yeah. I mean, your men. How did they become men when it's clearly a spaceship? Yeah, they've obviously changed that, but I mean that is arcade perfect from what I can tell.
It looks like
Right.
it's going to be fairly the same thing. I'm just trying to work out what the keys are, mate. Only need left and right and fire, for Christ's sakes.
Does it not? Yeah, I mean they've gone for it does look 100% authentic because the original has the men in the bottom. I don't know how many bloody lives you've got. 7. Is that the default number of lives, or have you pressed too many credits?
No, it's got a certain amount of lives on it.
Are you playing this, or is this?
No, this is the demo mode, as far as I know.
Right. I thought it was playing pretty well there.
It looks like you've got to actually insert a coin.
I'm sure the one that I had has that as well, because maybe not. Ah, there you go. Right, I'm just going to share mine again for a second.
There we go. K for credits, 1 for 1 player. There we go. Now all I've got to do is work it. Right. Now I've got to just find the fire button. As soon as I find the fire button, we are laughing, mate. You'd have thought it'd been spacebar or something, wouldn't you? There we go.
Apart from the obvious weedy sound effects, that's Space Invaders. I mean that you would have killed your granny for that.
Yeah, imagine having this in 1982 when the Spectrum come out.
You've got the arcade. Yeah, so yeah.
This is the new one that your viewer was talking about.
Right. I'm
Because
just
I mean
going.
Yeah, the sound of the alien, the spaceship at the top's a bit weedy, isn't it?
Yeah, I think
anyway.
they've even got the wee kind of. Has the original Space Invaders got that little kind of line at the bottom, just above your extra men?
I think it has actually.
I don't know quite what that actually is supposed to do. I'm going to just share my one again for a second.
Yeah, go for it.
So,
I'll hide under a building.
It looks exactly. From what I can tell, the only difference is they've moved the scores as to where they should be. But I mean, you've even got the little. There you go. That's me playing the arcade against the Spectrum one. So the Spectrum one's on the left and the arcade one's on the right. So yeah, it looks like they've just I don't know, they've just changed the. I think they've just kind of moved. I mean, there's I don't know. I'm moving the mouse. You can't see that. Yeah, they've put the men in the correct position. Even this part, I mean, they've just because I think in this version they did use ROMs. I wonder, are they using ROMs for the one that you're playing? I'll just share it again.
I have no idea because I hadn't heard about it before tonight, and it just so happened that the YouTube video I looked at had a link to the game which you can download from itch.io, and it's either it's one of them ones where it's free if you want, or pay what you want sort of thing.
Pay what you want, yeah.
I didn't want to pay anything, so I didn't. But that's not to say that it deserves it. I mean, that is a cracking version of Space Invaders.
It's insane, absolutely insane. I mean, they've also managed to emulate asteroids on the C64 and Atari. I did do a video a few years ago with that, and I think there was a version of Frogger that came out in the C64, and it's just perfect. They've got it absolutely. They've nailed it again. I've played that Frogger one. Yeah, I think they use the ROMs. So anyway, yeah, good stuff. Right, we'll just take that one off. Right, back to the questions. So that was Dale. Yeah, we've done the Superpower one. Wee Bob is asking, I loved Metal Gear Solid as it introduced lots of things I'd never seen before, such as enemy breath in the cold giving away their position. Are there any small upgrades to graphics and enemy AI that stand out in your memory? I wasn't a fan of Metal Gear Solid because it was like watching a film, wasn't it?
Well, in my best in-betweeners voice, Metal Gear Solid, completed it, mate.
Have you really?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I completed the first 4 of them. The first 4 Metal Gear Solid games are par excellence, and because they were that good, every other watch a movie game since has been boring by comparison for me. But you know who was it who said that?
That was Wee Bob.
Bob. Yeah, I agree with Bob totally. The first one was so good. I think Hideo Kojima, who produced the game basically and designed it all.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, it was actually. He managed to get stuff into a PlayStation game on 2 discs that I had never seen before. You know, like he says with the breath, like there's a bit where your character Solid Snake, you carry around a packet of cigarettes with you. And every time you try and smoke one, your health goes down and it points out that smoking's bad for you. But there's a bit where you've got to crawl under and get through like a laser fence, you know, or like laser sensors. And you have to use the cigarette smoke to breathe out so you can see where the lasers are. And it was really well done on the PlayStation. It actually looked like, you know, when you see lasers shooting through dry ice, it was actually that good. Yeah, and it was other things, like there was a bit where someone could read your mind. So you had to plug the PlayStation controller into port 2 so you could control your character without him reading your mind and stuff like that. It was a really novel game. I think Metal Gear Solid 3 on the PlayStation 2, the one that was set in the 60s, was the best one because you weren't so reliant on technology. And as far as that type of game goes, I think they peaked with Metal Gear Solid 3 on the PlayStation 2. I don't think there's been a stealth 'em up, they call them, innit? I don't think there's been a stealth 'em up that's been as well presented, as playable, and as much fun as. I mean, there's a boss called The End on Metal Gear Solid 3, and it's like a sniping duel you're doing with someone, and it can take minutes, or if you really get into it, it can take an hour to do this boss. Just ducking and diving, hiding in the bushes, trying to spot the glint of his scope and actually taking shots at him. And it was so in-depth. It was my brother-in-law who I work with that showed me that. He bought his PlayStation 2. They come to visit us once when we lived in London. And he bought his PlayStation 2 and he's like, you've got to see this. And I basically bought a PlayStation 2 on the strength of Metal Gear Solid 3. I thought it was that good. And I don't think they have improved them on it. All right, yeah, the graphics have got more lifelike over the years, and you know, I don't think they've really improved on the sound from DVD, but I think that was the peak of it for me.
I mean, what do you think? going for the C64, you got sort of better graphics, more colour, and then this is like the 16 bits had better resolutions and that kind of stuff, and then the PlayStation came along, and suddenly you were playing arcade games in your bedroom, playing things like Ridge Racer and that. And as you say, the details, things like breath and all that kind of stuff. The PlayStation 2, I think, was quite a big leap. Do you think, from the PlayStation 1? I mean, the graphics went from. I mean, if I was to put a PlayStation 1, if I was to put an original PlayStation game on a sort of 3D type one, I would guarantee that you would be. If I said to you PlayStation 1 or PlayStation 2, you would instantly know, because it is blocky. PlayStation 2 did take the graphical kind of finesse.
Oh yeah,
quite
definitely.
a bit. It did ramp it up quite a lot.
Yeah, there was it the Emotion Engine or something in a PlayStation 2 did the graphics. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was a huge leap forward. Although saying that, if you play a PlayStation 1 on a smaller CRT, it doesn't look as bad as if you're playing it on a 55-inch flat screen where it's all been sort of stretched out of all proportion.
Possibly, yeah.
But yeah, some PlayStation 1 stuff has aged really badly. I mean,
the early Polygon stuff, I think, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the 2D shoot 'em ups are never going to age. No. Metal Gear Solid, it does look a bit blocky in places compared to the later versions of the game, but it's still pretty good. I mean, there's a section on Metal Gear Solid 4 on PlayStation 3 where you have a flashback and you have to do a bit of the bass from Metal Gear Solid 1, and they basically just used PlayStation 1 graphics. So it's like not only was your character going through a flashback, so was the player as well. And it was a nice touch. And I don't think pixel graphics aged really. They are of a time.
Yeah.
But so much so, when you look at games like Minecraft and Shovel Knight, people are actually making games with fake 8-bit and 16-bit graphics now. So I don't think pixel art ever ages, but polygons, they do. I mean, you look at Wipeout on the PlayStation 1 and you compare that to, some of the stuff that came out on the PlayStation 2. It's it's worlds apart, and it was literally 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, you look at some games on even like that. One console that doesn't seem to get any love at all is the Xbox. I'm not going to call it the original Xbox, the Xbox. Some of the games that were out in that were just. I mean, it had an arcade perfect Outrun 2. Even stuff like Halo. I wasn't a fan of Halo, but the graphics were amazing. And then when you moved to the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, they were slightly more refined. And I still think that I could probably put an Xbox 360 game on and that you'd maybe never seen, and I'd say, is that a PlayStation 5 or is that a PlayStation 3? And you wouldn't know, because some of I think, I mean, look, from what I've seen, my very limited experience of what I've seen with like the PlayStation 5, I'm not interested unless it comes down ridiculously. Or in fact, if you can even buy one, I don't think. Can you still not buy them? Are they still completely sold out?
I have no idea. I've only ever seen one. My youngest boy bought one. He pre-ordered it and he got it on release day. And I mean,
so what's your thoughts on that?
I haven't looked at it that much, but when I've seen him playing it, a lot of his PlayStation 4 games now run at 60 frames. And he's got a fairly decent monitor that he has his computer shares with his PlayStation, and I mean it does look smooth. I'm not gonna lie, but I prefer 8-bit myself. But it's an impressive bit of kit, but it is still really only a mid-range gaming computer. It can chuck this stuff around at 4K and what have you, but it's effectively, and they are now, the consoles are effectively PCs in a box without all the hassle of doing it yourself. They're cheaper than PCs. I'll definitely give you that. They're a lot cheaper than PCs. I mean, to get a PC to do what a PlayStation 5 does, you probably have to spend 3 times the money. But it is like a cut price PC. But the good thing is, because until they bring out the the 5X or the 5 Pro or whatever, that PlayStation, you buy a game for a PlayStation 5, it will work on every PlayStation 5. Whereas you buy a PC game, you have to read the list of specs to make sure you've got enough RAM and that before you do it.
Yeah.
So I can understand why for I wouldn't say you're casual gamer, but for someone that's not interested in tinkering about and removing graphics cards and plugging new cards in and swapping hard drives and changing memory, the newer from probably the PlayStation 4 onwards, you're getting PC quality graphics almost, and you're getting it at a third, if not a quarter of the price. So I can see why. It's fairly impressive. It does look like a big black and white router or something stuck on his desk.
Yeah.
But, I'm not sure about the design aesthetics of the PlayStation 5, but he seems to like it.
Yeah, I mean, from what I say, I've never seen one. I've watched a couple of videos, and me personally, I don't really see. I've seen a couple of comparison videos, like is it Spider-Man on the PS4, Spider-Man on the PS5, and I'm like, what's the difference? From what I've gathered, is one thing that's always lacked in video games is like, if you're not that I play FIFA, but any game that's got like a human being running, the movement is never as fluid as you would be if you see a real person running. There's a lot more kind of instant in real life. Whereas looking at some of the games I've seen in the PlayStation 5, it's because it's got the horsepower, it's able to kind of move things that bit quicker, and it does look that wee bit more real. But as far as wow moments go, or things that I thought, wow, that's incredible. I think probably the last I don't know bit of hardware was probably the PlayStation, the Xbox 360, Xbox, the next Xbox, PS4. It's just a slightly nicer graphics. It's all about frame rates. I'm not really people going about 120 frames per second. I don't really get that myself. But
yeah, a couple of minutes ago, you mentioned about an arcade perfect outrun. Not this Sunday because it's a Sid Sunday, but the Sunday afterwards, I should have. If I get it done in time, I've got another 5 from 5 video coming out. And I have got the definitive version of outrunning that, so it's something to look forward to. I think it's the definitive version anyway. So we'll see.
Right, excellent. The Yamo, welcome to the channel. Thank you very much for taking time to ask a question. In your opinion, aside from Street Fighter, what was the worst arcade conversion on the Commodore Amiga? I would say Rolling Thunder, 1943, and Bionic Commando all qualifies horrible conversions. The Amiga conversion of Outrun is notoriously bad. Well, these are all the ones that are kind of sort of obvious. Worst Amiga conversion. What was I going to say? Was
Renegade, and Double Dragon were pretty poor, weren't they?
See, I'm going to kind of defend Renegade. I know the Co's are absolutely detested it, and when I featured it in my live stream a few weeks ago, people, oh, it's terrible. I didn't think it was that bad. Yeah, it looks like somebody's been sick all over the graphics, but I didn't think it was that bad.
Do you want a shock? Yes. Do you want a shock now?
No.
If you're going to play Renegade, play it on the ZX Spectrum.
Aye.
It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. There you go. I've undone all my hard work of taking the piss out of them now, and but yeah, that is like you're saying, that's someone clever. I mean, was that a Joffa Smith job? It's normally him that does the games like that.
He was just an absolute master on the Spectrum. I'm trying to think. Bad. I mean, hard driving. I think that was pretty shit. That was shit, and that should never have even.
No, that was released. The only one that was worth playing on was the Mega Drive version, the only one that had any sort of frame rate to it.
But it was a dull bloody game to begin with, so it's all about just it was about driving the real car with it was like a sort of a.
I remember playing that in the arcade. I mean, you actually had a clutch pedal on that as well, didn't you? So you actually had to drive it. I mean,
it was more kind of technical demo, I think, wasn't it? Really, it wasn't.
But on the Amiga, I'm just trying to think because the Amiga had some good ports as well.
Cisco Heat was pretty shit, but then that was shitting everything. Not as bad as the C64 one.
No, that's literally one of the worst. The Commodore 64 Cisco Heat is probably one of the worst games ever to be released for anything.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think. Bad Amiga conversions. But sorry, bad arcade conversions for the Amiga.
See, I've only really looked at good ones, but...
Well, Street Fighter, I would have said that was one of the worst. That's a horrific one.
Yeah,
Absolutely horrific.
Terrible. Final Fight was a bit pants on the Amiga as well.
And Street Fighter 2 was pretty crap as well. The frame rate was shit.
Yeah, I mean, the graphics were all right, but the frame rate was really slow, wasn't it?
I'm trying to he's basically picked all the ones that I would say. Street Fighter 2 is Street Fighter is probably the worst one. Rolling Thunder, they were all bad. There wasn't a decent version, and that could have had an arcade perfect version, with the sound and that. But
well, when you look at what Graham Cowie's done with Super Sprint and Rygar and Bombjack, you know the Amiga could do a Rolling Thunder. It's just a case of having the time and not being pushed for the Christmas market or whatever for someone to sit down and do it. And if Graham's got that time, that's why his arcade ports come out so good. I mean, do we need them now? We've got MAME. Maybe not, but it's still interesting.
To play them. Yeah. Another pretty bad arcade conversion on the Amiga was Power Drift. I think that was pretty pish.
Oh, mate, that was fucking awful. The best version of Power Drift to play.
C64.
C64, yeah, even better than the arcade. When I compared them last week in my arcade ports video, even though the arcade one started to grow on me a bit, the C64 one is just much more fun, much more playable. Like, I think someone commented it's like a arcade stunt car racer, and they're right. And that was terrible on the Amiga, because what they did on the Amiga, they tried to copy the arcade, and you've got those stupid great yellow bars going across that you have to drive over. And every one of them's a single sprite. Well, a home computer can only do so much. I mean, all right, if you play that with one of these, fancy schmancy vampire bleeding graphics cards you can plug into an A4000 running the fastest 060 processor, then it'll probably run as fast as the arcade. You'll need about $4,000 to do it, but you might as well buy the arcade machine. Yeah, Power Drift was absolutely terrible on the Amiga.
Pretty shit. Buggy Boy was kind of alright. Trying to think. Bloody hell. Roadland was excellent. That was a really good version. Rainbow Island is a fantastic conversion. Shit game, but it's a fantastic conversion. Christ, what else? It's bound to be driving games. Yeah, I mean, Outrun was shit. That was shit in virtually every system.
I don't know. It was pretty good on the PC Engine. In fact, Outrun on the PC Engine, I still think Outrun on the C64 weren't bad, because at least it went fast.
Aye. You know what? And that's a thing that I've noticed. Playing games now, playing some old games now, I'm not as critical as I was back then. You
haven't just dropped 10 quid on it, have you?
Exactly. No, I think that is. And I think because we're used to kind of like, super realistic graphics, when you go back and play a C64 game, it's going to look blocky. So if you play a bad C64 game, I don't know. Things like Outrun, I agree with you. I don't think the C64 version of Outrun is that bad. I would say that probably the Atari ST one's worse. You know what I mean? It's when you consider what it's trying to do, it's all right. I think it's all right.
It's down to what I was saying before, playability. I mean, at least all right. It hasn't got the bit where you select your track. I mean, you're a bit stuffed for that. They didn't put that in the 64 one. I know Lucosa was critical of that, and rightly so. I mean, one of the key things of Outrun was choosing your route. But at least on the American disc version, you could choose your route. You just had to choose it before you started the game. But but it does have the speed, and it is quite smooth. It's just not that nice to look at. Although the American release is slightly better because the guys that made it had a little bit longer time to kind of hone it a bit and give the woman blonde hair and stuff like that. But Amiga-wise, he has pretty much named all the bad ones.
Power Drift, like I said, Power Drift, yeah. Anyway, thanks for the question. That's appreciated. Multi Swinbuckle, do you think that a game can suffer by putting too much content into it? Or can releasing a demo spoil the full version of the game? As an example of what I mean, I can 100% relate to an anecdote you told in the past, as I experienced the same thing. This is a story you told about Skidmark's demo. I got the demo as well, played the absolute shit out of it, but on purchasing the game, my interest seemed to wane. I remember a similar thing happening when I got the Worms demo and then buying the game a few weeks later. So, sorry, do you think a game could suffer by putting too much content into it? I'm not quite sure what he means with that.
Perhaps he means like with skid marks, with the demo, because everyone had that demo, didn't they? When you had that demo, was it you just had the one track, and I think you could have a car, a caravan, or a cow to race around. But then when the game come out, they had like 9 tracks or whatever it was, 8 tracks, and you could mess about with cars and stuff like that. For some reason, the game didn't. They put so much in it, they took the smoothness out. I thought from the demo.
It was just it played. It was beautiful. It handled perfectly. You could power slide around all these corners, and it just seemed to kind of lose. It just seemed to lose it. It was a strange one, and like Milfy, I bought the game. Yeah, I did that. I bought that. I bought that in not John Menzies, in Virgin Megastore in Edinburgh, and I stopped playing it shortly after because, like, it's not as good. Bit like when Sensible World of Soccer came out. I mean, Sensible Soccer was one of the finest video games ever. Absolutely the best football game, bar none. And they just had the playability, absolutely nailed it, absolutely perfect. And then they brought out World of, and they'd fucked about with it slightly, and I wouldn't say it broke the game. I still played it a lot, but it wasn't as good.
Sensible World of Soccer was better if you were if you liked games like Kevin Tom's Football Manager. You had that side of it as well. But yeah, Sensible Soccer was something else. I mean, it'll always be a tough choice between that and Kickoff, really. But they were very different games on the same thing. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people compare the two, and you've got the Sensible mob and you got the Kickoff mob. I played both, and I had one mate that played Kickoff and one mate that played Sensible. So I played whichever. You know, I just enjoyed having a game. You know, it was nice to play someone else rather than the computer. So I didn't care which one I played. But yeah, when Sensible Soccer come out, it was something else.
Just even being able to play like Chinese food versus bits of computer hardware. And it was one of these games that absolutely it was one of these games that absolutely nailed the sound effects. When you almost scored, the crowd go, and it was just, it reacted. And that was one of the first games that reacted. The only game I would say better than Sensible Soccer for like noise was one of the I think it was Superstar Soccer on the SNES, and they've got the mad sort of like Japanese commentators. It's just if you ever play that, you've got to play the Japanese one. But yeah, Sensible Soccer was absolutely awesome. But I can't think a game's spoiled by putting too much content. In other words, making it kind of overly complicated.
Thing is, you can't please all of the people all of the time. Well, this is the only time I'm going to mention it. All right. There's a new bit of downloadable content that costs £30 for Elite Dangerous Odyssey, where you can get out your ships and walk about starports and get out your car on planets and whatever. And they've put in there's engineers in the game where you collect materials as you play it, and you can engineer your ships. And they're putting 9 new engineers in, and I'm like, that's brilliant. That gives me even more to do in the game. And yet you look on the Facebook page and the forums of people like saying, it means I've got to grind and do it. Well, don't do it then. If that's what you don't want to do, you don't have to do that in a game. With Elite, when I first started playing it, I got bored quickly because there weren't much in it when it first came out. And then when Luke Oza convinced me to give it another try, and since last summer when I started playing online with him, I haven't stopped. You know, I must spend... the amount of times I've gone to bed at 4:30 in the morning just as my missus is getting up when she's had to go to work and I haven't. is you know, that's how much I've got into it. So the more they put in that, the even better. But I'm trying to think what he means. I mean, surely if they give you more for your money, that's better. I mean, I can't think of anything that's had too much in it.
I suppose sometimes, yeah, they could make it. I mean, there's loads of games that I've played and then I give up because it's simply I don't understand, or it's too complicated. I mean, I've never been a fan of like crafting. You were mentioning that earlier on. You know, you've got all these games, even like is it the new? I've seen the new Zelda that came out a few years ago, Zelda on the Switch. You've got to, instead of in the old days, you picked up a bow and arrow and that was it. You had your bow and arrow. Now you've got to pick up a two sticks and a branch and string, and it only lasts for so long. And personally, I can't be bothered with that, and that's what kind of puts me off playing some of these big epic games. Is, you know, when you hear people saying, "Oh, I've been playing it for 120 hours and I'm on 4%," you're like, "Fuck me," you know. How that sometimes actually just hearing somebody saying that, I think, don't want to ever play it then, because I'm never ever going to be able to even scratch the game when somebody's put so many hours into a game. And I think, and all I can think about is, well, what am I missing out on? It's like when you play some of these games like, is it Oblivion and what's it called again, Skyrim and all that. Yeah, you could probably just go through the missions and do, but then you've got all these little submissions and all that, and you know, oh, you got a minute, mate. If you go and kill that woman, I'll give you a secret weapon and all that. And I think, like, I can't be doing that. And that's why games like Fallout 4, and which are meant to be amazing games, I just don't play them. But chances are I could probably just play it and, you know, complete it, and maybe it might be 17%. But I'm probably in that kind of brigade with people thinking, oh fuck, there's far too much going on. I'm not going to play it, and that's why I kind of try and avoid games like that, you know.
It does depend on the game. I mean, you know, I mentioned Elite, but that's a game you can do what you want with that. You can play it like the original Commodore 64 BBC Elite if you want, or you can play it like Frontier, or you can do a bit of everything. The crafting in that is you kind of have fun collecting the stuff in it. So, and then you just use it. You don't have to craft it yourself. You just go to an engineer, say, right, I want to upgrade my engine. Click, and that's it. It's upgraded as long as you've got the materials. Games like Breath of the Wild looks lovely, but if I go to the effort of making a sword and hit something 3 times and it breaks, I'm going to do my fucking conkers out. You know what I mean? I don't mind running out of ammo in a game and having to buy or make new ammo. That's sensible. But when your sword breaks every 5 minutes, like, oh, fuck off.
That's me at tea. That's exactly why I don't even bother with these things. But anyway, thank you very much, Milthy. So listen, I think we better wrap this one up. So yeah, an hour and whatever it is. Yeah, fantastic. Listen, Panther, it's always a pleasure to have you on, mate. Don't come on sooner again. Don't leave it so long next time.
But I think you'll ask me, mate.
Yeah, no, I know. I think there is a bit of interest in us doing another live stream at some point, another kind of, I wouldn't say a 12-hour, but I think we could maybe come up with something. I think that would be, we'll need to wait for maybe on holiday at some point, right enough, before we do that. But would you be up for that at some point?
Yeah, I can do that. I might even be able to help you get emulators running properly.
Yeah. So anyway, listen, Panther, thanks very much for joining me, and finally, thank you very much to everybody that's watching. Have an absolutely fantastic weekend, and I will be along on Sunday as always. What time is it? 6 o'clock till 8, and it's a FM Towns Marty special. If you don't know what that is, go and Google it and you'll find out. Until next time, guys, thank you very much for watching. Cheers.